With first-round upsets and thrilling Cinderella runs, the 2018 March Madness tournament has been one of the most unpredictable events in recent memory. I'm here with Will Burns and Gentry to break down the weekend's Final Four matchups. Boys, after a bloody battle with two-seeded Duke, Kansas advanced to play the Wildcats of Villanova in the Final Four. So, Will, who's advancing to the championship game from that matchup?
Villanova is going to win this game against Kansas. They've been dominant this entire tournament, scoring 87 points a game on 50% shooting. They've been unbelievable this tournament. I can't bet against them.
I'm going with Kansas in this one.
All right.
I only think that is because Villanova hasn't really been well in close games this season, and they haven't had it in the tournament. Kansas is a senior-led team by Devontae Graham and the senior leadership of him alone, Big 12 Player of the Year, beating out Trae Young unanimously. That says something. And the fact they had the blue blood battle with Duke, and they survived that, went to overtime, couple questionable calls that could have gone either way. The fact they survived Duke, who was one of the hottest teams in the tournament, says something that they're ready to win this go to the national championship game.
But then again, that game was a few rolls around the basket from going Duke's way. Kansas did prevail in overtime, but it was a very close game, whereas Villanova has absolutely obliterated their competition every single time. And for Kansas, Malik Newman has been fantastic, but I don't know if Villanova's defense is going to allow him to keep scoring 30 points a game.
But you say that the defense, Kansas picked apart Duke's defense, who had shut everybody down in the tournament.
That's true. Jalen Brunson's also been fantastic for Villanova. I think he's going to have a great game against Kansas. I think it's definitely going to go Villanova's way.
Yeah, it's
Both
good.
teams coming in hot. Maybe Villanova a bit more momentum. Let's go to the other side of the bracket, Drew. Loyola Chicago, the Cinderella story, we all love it. Facing Michigan, a formidable opponent. Who's going from that game?
I'm taking the Ramblers in this.
All right.
They're 24-0. They're leading at halftime, so if they get that lead over Michigan going into halftime, they're not going to lose this game. The fact they're one of the hottest teams in the tournament, they know how to survive close games. They've done it all tournament, and they tore apart Kansas State, who had one of the best defenses in the tournament. That shut down Kentucky and surprised earlier in the tournament.
That's true, but the 3 games before Kansas State, they beat Miami by 2 points, Tennessee by 1, and Nevada by 1. So all these games have been decided by 1 bucket. I'm looking at Michigan. Their defense has been fantastic all tournament long. I think they're going to prevail in this game. I can't trust Loyola Chicago in this big of a stage.
But you're saying the 1 bucket. Michigan only got away from Houston off a clutch 3 by Poole. And I'm going with the 3 wins by 1 bucket or less with Loyola Chicago, meaning it wasn't just luck one time. If you can survive 2 one-point games and a 2-point game, something's in your favor. And let's be honest, everybody loves what Sister Jean is doing with that program.
That is true.
They're America's sweetheart right now.
I just think Michigan has been so much more dominant this year. They won their games by combined 46 points, whereas like I said, Loyola, their 3 previous games by combined 4.
Yeah.
So it seems like both teams may be just a bit of luck away from not being in this game. You knew it was coming. Last question, Will, who's taking the whole thing?
I think Villanova is going to beat Michigan in the national championship game. What I'm looking at is Mikal Bridges being an X factor in this game. The last game, he went 0 for 5 from three-point range. He's supposed to be a lottery pick in the NBA. If he can up his game, then Villanova is simply unstoppable. The fact that they could win with him having a bad game shows a lot about them.
All right. So I'm going with Kansas against Loyola, but I just think Kansas is their time. Bill Self's only championship is in San Antonio, and when you're familiar with certain areas, it's proven, like Duke and Minneapolis and Indianapolis. And then they're not the same team they were early in Big 12 play, where they were losing on the road and everything against teams they shouldn't lose to. And I just think that them being the dominant powerhouse Big 12 name, that they're going to squeak by Villanova, and I just don't think that Loyola, or if Michigan does come out of that bracket, that they're going to be able to stop Kansas with how hot they are.
Yeah, I mean, Villanova has just been so fantastic this year. I can't pick against them. Brunson, Bridges, and Spellman have all been sharpshooters for them. Michigan doesn't shoot the 3 ball as well. I think Villanova will beat Michigan by maybe about 10 points in the national championship game.
Do you think Kansas at all, any ill effects from the overtime game versus Duke, any kind of fatigue maybe?
I honestly think it helps them in a sense, because you have all this time to comprehend what happened. You know what you did wrong. You know how to stop it. You know if Villanova starts to play a zone, you know how to attack a zone, which I don't think they will. But Kansas, with their size and power, I just think that having gone through a battle to war with one of the other best programs in basketball history, you can't be slow coming out of the gate.
Well, that showed a lot about them, that the fact that they won that game. But I think you do have to take fatigue into a factor when you're thinking about this. Just 2 games later, a week later, they're going to be tired. An overtime
but
game.
It's 6 days after. 6 days is plenty of time to rest up for these guys. They got to go home back to Kansas, sporting the championship of the Midwest region. How else are you going to celebrate with everybody else, get your mental state right, and go into that game not on fire, ready to go kick the Wildcats?
We don't know what's going to happen. We do know it will be exciting. That's for sure. That is it for us on the hardwood. When we come back, we will hit the links to preview the Masters.